And good morning. It is 22 minutes after 9 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning, Chaves County Manager Bill Williams back with us. Morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you, Mike?
Doing great. How's life treating you?
It's been good. It's a little breezy outside this morning, but
A little different,
if
isn't
it blows in some rain, it'll be well worth it.
Hopefully, we got a nice little rain the other day. Hopefully, get a few more of those here this weekend. Hopefully.
Yeah, I log it. I have a
wood.
book, and I got 2 tents at my house the other day is all I got.
Ah.
Didn't get any during the heavy rain, and so for the year, I'm just under 2 inches of rain for the entire year.
Man, that stinks.
So, yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, we're over halfway through the year. We're only at 2 inches. So
Yeah, that's pretty bad. And of course, last year we had over 20 inches. It was a pretty wet
and that's
year.
a good year. Yeah, that's a real
really
good year for us.
So, and other people had more and less, of course, but I felt like I was kind of right in the heart of it last year. 20 inches this year, I'm right in the heart of the drought.
Nah, well, maybe the fall will be better for us here in the moisture-wise. Cross your fingers. We'll see.
Rains on both the just and the unjust.
Exactly.
So I do have hope that maybe it'll rain on me.
A little bit. Come on down. Of course, county commissions had a little bit off schedule this summer with meetings not really lining up on their normal weeks. But
yeah, we've been a week later with, I think, 4 meetings this spring. So, but we'll be back on track for next month and throughout the rest of the year, unless something
unless another meeting or another
But,
event happens that we need to adjust.
I mean, we schedule these at the beginning of the year and have it all lined out, but then other things happen and we can't make it.
Especially if it's one of these call to action type events type things. Those usually turn up at a relatively quick time pace.
Right.
So.
And Commissioner Cavan and I went to the National Association of Counties last week, which is why, it happened to be scheduled during our commission. So that's the reason for this particular commission meeting being pushed forward 1 week. So
good deal. But for August, I think everything's back to normal.
Everything should be back to normal.
Good deal. So by the way, if you do not know, county commission meetings are always open to the public. They meet on the third Thursday of the month normally at 9 a.m. at the commission chambers there at the county admin building.
Right.
So, on 1 St. Mary's Place is the official address.
That's correct.
Yeah. Matter of fact, if you want it easy, go through the main entrance, the one with all the doors and stuff, the main entrance. Keep walking straight, you'll bump right into the county commission chambers.
That's right, straight ahead. So.
You'll bump right into it. And then, of course, the county manager's office is right there, too. So, but as far as highlights go, what's some of the stuff we do want to let people know about that took place at this last commission?
Well, as you know, because you've been doing this for a long time, you interviewed Stan for years.
Yes.
Before he left, you've been interviewing me since I took over. The July meeting is usually wrought with boredom.
Yes, because really the last month was the big grand finale, getting the budget put through and dotting the I's and crossing all that good stuff.
Well, this is the month where we have to renew a bunch of agreements and all those things that come into play because
it's a lot of housekeeping.
Our fiscal year, ends June 30th and begins again July 1st. So there's a whole bunch of documents that just have to be done, and they're pretty
just mundane minutia.
Mundane. Yeah, that's very good. We do, however, the actual official budget is actually passed in July because we have to close out the books at June. So we have the interim budget is approved in its entirety prior to July 1st. But we have to get the final results of all the revenues and the expenditures that took place in June. And so once they get that and they make everything balanced, then they bring that back in July and present the actual final budget. But
that's mostly a formality.
It's more of a formality because everything's done other than
the hard work's already been done.
A few numbers being added here or there or something. So, but anyway, we did have some highlights. One of the highlights, and of course it ties to your guest last hour.
Yeah, with the Chaves County shooting sports pistol team. Yeah.
Yes, those guys are amazing. Do not stand in front of them when they're shooting because they will hit you.
They know what they're aiming at.
So we had a proclamation for the Chaves County 4-H shooting sports, and we presented proclamations to Rainin Melton, Reese Melton, Nathaniel Higgins, Wyatt Curry, Cooper Campbell, and then their coach, John Thosen. They not only won the state championship, but then they went to nationals in Nebraska, raised money to do that. They don't, they're not flush with cash.
Yeah.
I mean, these kids worked really hard.
Sure.
And they worked really hard to become that good of a shot. Bullseye, silhouettes, there are several different categories, and they just dominated this thing.
Yeah.
I believe in the nationwide event, they finished 9th, which, how many hundred shooters were there. That's pretty darn good. But
Absolutely.
in New Mexico, they were far and above everybody else. They did a really good job. So that was exciting to see the kids get an award for that.
Absolutely,
and they're in the middle of the county fair, so a lot of these kids had to, prioritize. Okay, I want to get my award, but I still have my pig coming out. Or yesterday was sheep.
One of the young men we had on this morning said, "Yeah, he's in the livestock auction. He's got a couple goats in the livestock auction tonight. So I think he booked it out of here and went to the fairgrounds to get ready for tonight and everything else."
They've been working really hard this week. I think yesterday was the sheep show, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've been.
But tonight's the big junior livestock sale. So this is kind of the big grand finale for these kids all week.
Yeah,
so.
And so if anybody would like to encourage his kids, of course, go out to the sale and you can do add-ons. You don't necessarily have to buy the lamb.
Sure.
And they get a lot of support from the community. So a lamb may go for $2,000-$3,000, and average person's not going to want to do that. But you can also do add-ons. You can just say, I'm going to add $50 on.
Yeah, help the kid out.
And that's really helpful to the kids.
Because the money used is either, depending on their age of the kid, it'll go towards their next project for next year's show, or they use it for college money to pay for college and all that. So
paying their feed bill.
Or paying the feed bill. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the fruit of their rewards here. The fruit of their efforts basically is what they're getting is showing that it's basically they've been teaching these kids raise these animals, the hard work, everything involved in that, and you work hard and you get rewarded hard, and that's kind of this is the reward for their lesson today.
Yeah, so. And it's day in and day out. It's not like I don't feel like taking care of my lamb today. I mean, every single day they're out there.
Don't care if you're sick or whatever.
Don't care if it's over 100 degrees. You have to be out there and teach them to behave in the show ring and other things. So the kids do a really great job, and it's really neat when we get an opportunity to honor the 4-H and FFA kids within our county.
Yeah.
And so we were really happy to have a chance to do that yesterday. Like I say, we had a lot of mundane in our meeting yesterday. Approval of DWI applications and forms and
so
those
the fun stuff
is
when the kids come in and do the proclamations and all. That's the fun stuff.
I have been doing a little research this morning. However, I didn't think about it till I woke up in the middle of the night and says, that would be good information to have.
Oh, an epiphany moment?
Yes. And unfortunately, it wasn't a moment. It was several hours last night sitting there. I don't really care anymore. Just let me go back to sleep.
You just lost hours of sleep on it. Well, I apologize for that.
But sorry, my phone buzzing here in my pocket. I'm trying to get it to quit. We retired some industrial revenue bonds yesterday for the Alderman Cave feed mill that's out on White Mill Road.
Okay.
And in case you've ever wondered why it's called White Mill Road, it's because the mill was originally the J.P. White Mill. Ah,
the White family.
And so since it was retired, I thought, well, it'd be really good to let people know when that was built and kind of what led up to all this
give people a little bit of background.
Of course, in my usual method, I wasn't as prepared as I hoped. So this morning, been making calls and asking people. And as it turns out, J.P. White the fourth was pulling out of the burrito line as I was walking out the front door, and his window was down, and I was going to yell at him, but I thought if I do that, we're probably going to have a major accident here, so I didn't do it. So contacted about 4 other people before I came in this morning. We were next door at Kenneth Barbie's office, and he got him on the phone, and we think that the J.P. White Mill, we were wondering when it was built.
Yeah.
And the fourth told us that he believed that it was there when he was born in 56 and had been there for a while. So he thinks it may have even been built as far back as the 1940s.
Okay.
Probably late 40s, early 50s, could be the possible time frame.
So we're looking 70, 75 year plus building.
That's really something for our community to have had for this long. Of course, it's had upgrades along the way and everything. And we'll talk about the IRB and what that meant as far as upgrades here in a minute. But we will call J.P. White III. He lives in Florida now, and by the next time I come in, maybe we'll have a full history of what it was. But anyway, for today, we know that it was built sometime prior to 1956, possibly as far back as the late 40s.
Okay, so we're probably looking about 80 years or so.
That's pretty impressive. But what we did yesterday was we retired some industrial revenue bonds. So in the year 2000, Alderman Cave or Bluebonnet Feeds bought the J.P. White mill from whoever had it prior to them, and I'm not certain who that was, if it was still in the White family at that time or not. But there had been a fire at the mill sometime prior to 2000, because that's when this took place. And Alderman Cave probably owned it at that point, but there was a fire, and the mill was damaged beyond use, so they needed to repair it. And so they acquired industrial revenue bonds, and not a huge amount. Industrial revenue bonds, sometimes like for Leprino and stuff, are huge amounts, and they're tied, of course, to what they're going to bring to the community, whether it's economic development, whether it's a lot of jobs, a retail or a wholesale type environment that brings money into our community, and that's the purpose behind industrial revenue bonds.
Okay.
But they borrowed $3 million to rebuild the plant after it burned in the year 2000. And they're 30-year bonds, so that would tell you, well, they expire in the year 2030. So if you sell the property, you can just transfer the bonds, and the next owner will take over with that.
Take over payments,
and
basically. Yeah.
One of the advantages for the owner of the business to have industrial revenue bonds is they don't always have to pay property tax. I mean, there's so many varieties. I was reading some stuff about them yesterday, and there are so many options. In fact, when this sale took place on the Alderman Cave property, a local attorney who's very experienced called me, and he said, "Bill, what can you tell me about this? Because it shows that the title is in Chaves County's name. Do you guys own the feed mill?" I said, "No, they have industrial revenue bonds." He said, "In my 30-some years, I've never experienced anything with this. How does this work?" And so we explained, kind of how the industrial revenue bonds work. And they could be passed along to the new owner, and he would just pay them out for the additional 8 years that were left on them, and not have to pay taxes. The new owner chose to, no, I just want it all free and clear because I want to rebuild everything. I don't want that title in someone else's name. Because
he wants a clean title, clean slate.
Yeah, the county holds the title to the property, or the municipality, if they're the ones that issue the bonds. They hold it, but there's no liability. So if the person were to default on it, there's no harm, no foul to the taxpayer.
Don't lose the title. It doesn't go over to the county.
It just makes sure that the bond people can have access to auction it back off and get their money back if it has to. And industrial revenue bonds have a very low default rate. It's less than 3%, they say. So, they're very safe, and there's a lot of reasons why people do them. But
and of course, that's why they also probably selective on who they give them to as well.
and like say, if you're a company and you want to build widgets, and you come in and, well, nobody else builds widgets in this area, and we really need widgets, that might be a reason to do it, because then it's going to be a boon to the economy, where people can go buy their widgets.
The county
spending the money and getting it in circulation in the county. Or it may be we have all the materials needed to build widgets here. We don't use widgets here, but we build those widgets here, and then we send them off somewhere else, and they repackage them and send them all over the world. So,
but basically, if your product is a benefit to the county, that's when they'll say, then if it's good for the people, then it's good for us to give it to you.
And the kind of the third reason people would want to do an industrial, or a municipality or a government would want to do an industrial revenue bond, is because the huge number of jobs. Maybe we don't wholesale widgets. Maybe we don't have the materials to make widgets here, but we have the workforce here, and so we're going to put 400 people to work building widgets with, materials that come from somewhere else, ship them out. And so that all those things tie to our local economy.
Absolutely. Cost of living and everything else.
And so because it provides such a benefit, they're willing to not collect property tax for that period when the bonds are in play. And this was a $3 million thing. It was not a huge amount, but still they were not required to pay property tax on the particular type of bonds that they did. So they chose to give up those bonds. We want it free and clear. We want to rebuild everything.
And they don't get any penalties for paying it off early or any of that kind of stuff? No, there's no penalty or anything
like that, just as long as they're repaid in full. And so that's the method they chose to do. So when you do bonds, you have to involve the public. And so you have an ordinance that you have to pass. So there's public meetings, and people can come out and say, oh, heck no, I don't want you to help fund that thing. So,
I don't imagine anybody really would, but in theory,
it depends, because, there's a lot of times someone will come forward and try to obtain an industrial revenue bond that may just give them a leg up on their competitor. And so We're very careful about it in this
Sure.
part of the world, but there
in
are
this
places
particular-
where that happens.
Yeah.
And so,
But in this particular case, that wasn't an issue
no,
here.
and you want the people to be able to have a say and come in and do their part and
Gotcha.
be in the process.
So when they're using it as a competitive tool to gain on
right.
their partner, or their rival business, then we're starting.
Yeah,
to,
that's a different thing. And so anyway, we had an ordinance in place that was passed back in 2000, allowing us to do the industrial revenue bonds for that purpose, and the whole purpose has to be spelled out, and the repayment terms, all that. And so you have to retire those bonds in order for the ordinance to go away, and that's what we did yesterday. But
Gotcha.
That was a really long explanation of what happens with industrial revenue bonds, and I don't think anyone knows how this fully works.
Does he just, I guess, cut a check for the remainder of what's on the bond and call it good, basically?
Yeah, there's a third-party bond administrator, I think they call it, and they are the ones who actually take the monies, and if there's a payment in lieu of taxes, which are usually in place, it's basically a negotiated lower tax rate. It's not just entirely no taxes in many cases. So they would send their payments to that person, who then would distribute it to the proper people, whether it was the investors who sold them the bond, that have the money involved, or if it was payment in lieu of taxes going to local government, schools, whatever.
Gotcha.
And so, it's just like in the closing documents, they send a check to the bond people, and it's done.
Good deal.
And our part, of course, was just paperwork, because our name's on the title. We had to deed it back to them, so that everything legally takes Chaves County off, puts them back on, and it's entirely theirs.
Yeah.
So if you have nothing better to do this weekend, drive towards Tatum till you get to White Mill Road. Turn down the road, and you'll see they've been doing a whole lot of work out there. They've been cleaning the place up. Looks like maybe they're going to pave the entire area.
All right.
They've been working dirt work. They've got box crane out there. Has been unstacking portions of it. I think they're getting ready to really
ramping up
retrofit and make it a good deal, which is great, because commodities raised right here in Chaves County go right through White Mill. Not all of them, but I mean, a lot of the commodities they use come from here. So,
well, and let's face it, in the world we live in right now, the more we're producing here locally, the better off our economy is, and everything. It's just supply and demand's goofy right now. So the more we're doing here locally is a good thing. So
supply chain, we raise the grain or the alfalfa, send it to the mill. They create livestock feed. We can take it out, feed our own cows. And
kind of we're
circle.
good to go regardless of what the outside world's doing. We at least got people here taken care of. That's a good thing. So good deal. I'm glad I love the history. I love of course an end result that it's all win-win for everybody. And this is really almost and they lived happily ever after type moment.
Yes. So another thing that we did yesterday was we approved the CAP co-op and school bus funding that comes to us from New Mexico Department of Transportation every year. We ask for monies to chip seal our roads, to repair our roads. There's other things that we do as well, but these three programs specifically are for rebuilding roads.
Okay.
And it's a chip seal that we utilize to rebuild them. So we got for the capillary part, we got $269,534. For the cooperative program, we got $124,131. And for the school bus roads, they're all designated differently depending on certain criteria, we got $277,300.
Now, does that money have to be earmarked to work specifically on those designated roads, or can you put it in the pot to work on all roads?
No, these particular funds, and these will be for next year's roads. We're always about a year out. We have to start applying for next year's. We have to come up with the termini of this road from here to here. They can't have been redone in the last 6 to 8 years.
Okay.
There's a lot of criteria.
So you have a little bit of leeway, but there's a lot of restrictions on where you can and cannot put this money towards chip seal.
So we do assessments on our roads to make sure which ones are the best, the worst, and then we make sure that we utilize as much as we can on the worst roads.
Okay.
And try to get them rebuilt. But this is an ongoing thing. Currently, the chip seal program that they have going on, most of that was funded in last year's agreements, just like the ones we did yesterday, that we approved yesterday. So
interesting. All right.
So roughly, $600,000 came from the state to help us build our roads. There is a match in-kind match that the county does.
Okay.
But The state portion is about $600,000 this year, and it varies. Some years the state has more money, some years they have less. We've had over $1 million a couple of occasions.
Okay, so this is about average. It's not high or low.
Yeah, this is probably average.
Okay, so if you're wondering, for those doing election numbers in your head, this one doesn't quite go with your theory. Sorry. I know what some people are thinking. I'm just filling in that gap for you.
Well, I'm glad that the camera's not on me this morning, Mike, because people see me. They'll see me grinning at odd times as you stir the pot.
That's right. But that's good. So I would imagine, like you said, this is for next year. So when you see the chip sealers out, this is where that funding came from. So,
right.
Good deal.
Another thing that we did yesterday is we have a resolution that approves the work plan and all. Then we have an agreement with the Southeastern New Mexico Economic Development District Council of Governments.
Okay.
I have to read that because that's really
hard. It is a mouthful.
It's really hard to remember. There's an acronym for it. The acronym is harder than
it's just as bad as it. Yeah.
So
I was in the military. I know exactly how that goes. Like, this is even an acronym anymore? It's like, come on.
But every year we reapprove our agreement and resolution, the work plan, what they're going to do for us, and it's for economic development.
Okay.
And it's Dora Bautista is running that organization now. Paul Pappas has joined them. Mary Ann Burr works over there. Pansy. There's a whole crew over there do really good work and assist us in any number of ways to gain funding, whether it's legislative capital outlay, whether it's community development block grants. We entered into an agreement with them last year to assist us with the CARES Act funding because there's so much money and they have expertise in how to manage those funds and to make sure we do the reporting correctly.
That's what they do, so let them do it.
and I mean, we have staff that's very good. Our finance director and the rest of the staff, we finally got a final rule from the feds. We had the interim final rule. It's like, wait a minute, isn't that a military term?
Yeah.
Kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
interim final.
Is this a jumbo shrimp situation we got going on here?
Military intelligence. Yeah. All those. And I joke there. That's not even a good one. But
no, but everyone agrees. So, I mean, I guess it's no longer a joke if it's true.
But they do a good job for us and help us in many ways to make sure that we can find funds, utilize funds, get all our reporting done so that these infrastructure projects that happen throughout our community do happen. And as a result, the economic development, the economic returns to our community. And so that was one of the agreements that I felt like I should mention specifically because it's with a local organization that really does a lot of work. And
that's something I know the county commission, they do all the time. When these organizations like them, and there's quite a few others just in various fields of needs and things in this county. But you guys, the county commission's always done a good job of kind of let the experts do what they do. You know what I mean? And we'll make sure you're doing the right things with it. But at the end of the day, you're the expert in the room on this. Why should we defer? Tell you our opinion on how to do it when you probably know how to do it better than we do. So so they really are good at when to let the people know what they're doing, do what they got to do, but at the same time making sure they're not abusing or doing anything they're not supposed to.
Stepping into that little niche that gets overlooked a lot of times.
And that's at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for with government because these elected officials aren't experts in everything, and if they were, they probably would be doing those things instead of being
well,
you know what I mean?
Possibly.
And so that's part of leadership is knowing when to listen and when to execute. So I was just pointing out the county's always done a real good job of that. So
yeah, I think we're really fortunate to have the commissioners that we have, and they just represent the values of our community so well. I'm just really honored to work with them and for them and have them on our side. So that's good. One thing I should probably go over pretty quick. I don't know how much time we have, but
we got about 5 minutes or so. 5 to.
We talked about the infrastructure capital improvement plan yesterday. We accepted the terms of our agreement. Well, actually, it wasn't an agreement. It's a resolution to submit our infrastructure capital improvement plan to the state of New Mexico. And we're usually a couple of years off. It's a 5-year plan saying we'd like to possibly find a way to build this. It's all infrastructure projects over the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe this was the 2024 to 2028 capital outlay or infrastructure capital improvement plan, not capital outlay. And so we have to prioritize our top 10 projects.
Yeah, this is the list every year.
Yeah,
you guys
there are actually hundreds of projects on there from, fire departments turn in projects, the road department turns in projects, sheriff's department, the public services, everyone has projects and say, we need to build this, we need to improve this, we need to do that.
Right.
And so we have to whittle it down to our top 10. And then when we go to the legislators later on, they usually try to get us to whittle it down even shorter than that, maybe our top 5.
Okay.
They like us to present on 3, but it's pretty hard to only ask for 3 projects.
Sure.
And so usually we manage to whittle it down to 5, and they give us a little slap on the wrist. So, you weren't really supposed to do that many, but at least we narrow it down initially to 10.
Sure.
So that we all feel like these are our main priorities for the coming year, and then.
And I would imagine too, like ones that maybe did make the cut last year, like, okay, we got to put that in this year because it didn't make the cut last year.
And a lot of times they'll fall off. Our needs change.
Yeah,
and
money came in, or something else happened,
or something else happened. It might have got funded, in a different manner, and so that changes the whole thing. Or it might just be we don't need it anymore because something changed. And so it's a living document that we produce, and we look at it very closely every year and say, have the prices gone up? Now, do these numbers still reflect what it's going to cost to actually do that? Is there still an interest in the community to do that particular project? Yeah. Have we fixed it with some other means? All those things that you mentioned.
But kind of at the end of the day, for folks, it's still a little confusing. At the end of the day, it's really the county's kind of wish list of things they would like funding from the state on, and these are the biggest 3 projects that we would like that to happen. And so when the state at some point says, we're going to bequeath money now, and give me my capital outlay projects, and they start picking projects and they start doing it. So in a nutshell, it's a little more convoluted than that, but in essence, that's what's going on.
Georgiana Hunt is our grant writer. She does this every year, and it is a very difficult process, and lots of spreadsheets, lots of backup documentation. The verbiage has to be just right. It has to match on this line and this line. If you change a word, it might affect your funding, and she does a really good job on that. But along with this, we have to agree as a county. The county commissioners have to agree on what our top projects are. And so yesterday we brought it up, discussed it a little bit in the meeting, and our top 10 projects for this year for the infrastructure capital improvement plan.
Okay.
When I say for this year, to be submitted this year, but it's the 2024 to 2028
fiscal year. Yeah.
Yes, because this is fiscal year 22, 23. So the next one, of course, will be 23, 24, which would align with this. So
we still got the baby boy for the fiscal new year.
Yes.
It's not the old man yet. It's the little baby.
Just a little guy. So our number 1 priority for infrastructure capital improvement is the health department, which we've committed to building.
Okay.
While there's funding here, and we've talked about this before, all these billions of dollars being floated around the United States, our Chaves County commissioners thought, wouldn't it be nice if 50 years from now there was something to show for all this money that our great-grandkids are going to be paying for even then?
Absolutely. Now, some of the ones that get to the top of the list is part of the criteria that, well, we think this is something the state would fund. Like need is part of it, but
that does come into play.
Into the types of need the state looks into when funding versus what we think they should need.
Yes, and timing is everything.
Gotcha.
A lot of these projects, it's not that they're not still important to us. It's not that they've gone down the list, but it's because of the possibility for funding sources.
We got a better chance of pushing this through than that one through.
We track and pay attention to all the different funding methods that we have, and say, this looks like it's going to be a pretty good year for health departments, and so let's push that.
Sure. And because I'm hearing that, and I'm like, this sounds like something they'd love.
Right. Well, the CARES Act, has so many buzzwords in there about community health, after COVID and all that, delivery of services to certain parts of your community. All of those things are in there. And so that makes it real easy to say, okay, this funding can be earmarked for that because it meets all these criteria. and we can't use it for something else. So let's benefit our community long term.
Yeah.
And do something. So that's how the health department ended up on there. And
Gotcha.
we did close on our property that we purchased to build a new health department. The New Mexico Department of Health came to us and said, hey, would you be willing to build the health department here? We were, trying to identify a parcel of land to build a new health department on. By state statute, the county is required to provide for the public health department.
Gotcha.
We don't provide the administrative offices for Department of Health, but we do provide for the local health office.
The property.
So,
gotcha.
yeah, the building, all
facilities,
that.
basically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so we purchased a piece of property essentially at the corner of, and it's not exactly at the corner of, but it's essentially the corner of Garden and Hobbs Street.
Okay.
So it's right near Pecos Elementary School, and there's a lot of room there, and we think it's going to be a good location.
Good deal.
So they actually asked for it, and so we were able to.
So really, all the ducks are in line here. So as soon as they start funding projects, this one's probably going to be one of the first on the list because it meets the criteria that they are probably looking for.
And the county has already committed to funding this. And so at this point, it's okay. Now, if we can get additional funding, it allows that other funding to stay in the county where we can use it for other things. We've already committed to building it, but we're looking at ways to do it. And one of the ways that we want to fund that is community development block grant. We can get up to $750,000 from the federal government for a community development block grant project, a CDBG project.
Okay.
And we've applied for funding for this project through CBDG.
Okay.
So that would be $750,000 additional money we could get from the feds if it gets there.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons we're pushing that project. The Brasher Road Bridge. We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it first happened, it was one of those stories about how well government works. And then it became the snafu that it was. The local people came to us in a planning and zoning meeting because there was a need for a new business out there. And they said, we don't want the business because the bridge is dangerous. You bring all those trucks out here. And right now people are going to the center of the road to get over the bridge. And that's just going to make it worse. We said, oh, there's a problem with the bridge. Well, we don't drive down that road every day. We didn't really realize. So we looked at it and said, you guys are right. We got to do something about this. So we put it on our ICIP. We managed to get full funding from the state of New Mexico.
Shocking.
And we're wow,
happy.
This is the way this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
People ask, and we provided. I mean,
government action in a good way.
Real proud of the county and the way that they initiated the project, got it going, sent it through the legislature, sold them on the fact that we needed the money for this project. Our local legislators, helped us out. Then it went to the governor's office and it was vetoed. It was a previous governor. I don't want to stir up anything that's not, but a previous governor vetoed it. So, all right, we went back to ground zero. So we've been trying for about 4 years now to get it back. Last year, our legislators managed to get us the funding that we originally asked for. Unfortunately, in the last 5 years, the cost of bridges has gone up. So we're keeping it on there. Hopefully, they'll be able to give us a second commitment of funding so we can fully fund that bridge.
Well, the governors are coming down here to hang out on bridges, so maybe that helps the cause a little bit.
The third item is the Pecos Valley Dispatch. The fourth item, the courthouse windows. We have been funded for the courthouse windows. We've done the dome and the third floor. We have funding in place, and they should be starting construction real soon on the second floor.
Okay.
So that leaves the first floor. And same thing, the cost of building historic windows has gone up.
I would
considerably over the last 7 years since I started.
And are the ones on the
this.
first floor bigger than the second one, or are they all about the same size? And so I imagine they're going to be more expensive.
Yeah, there's a real variety throughout.
Yeah.
I think that it's probably about the same overall number.
So I figure it might be a little more expensive, lower, because they're bigger windows or something.
When this started out, the opinion of probable cost was $495,000 for the courthouse windows to replace all the windows from first, second, third floor, and dome. And we're over $1.3 million is what it is actually costing. Of course, there's a lot of historic value and special construction, but it's just the cost of things have gone up, and we're getting close.
Is there grant money for like historical building renovations like that?
There are grants, and we look at all those kind of things, and there's so much competition for historic grants.
Gotcha.
And
it's pretty competitive. Huh?
Yeah, and we've done some of that, but it's just really difficult, and sometimes there are so many strings attached.
Sure.
You don't want to get involved.
And I imagine if you try to go that route, it probably hamstrings when you go through the government route to get the funding too.
Right,
So.
because you've got to get two different entities now to agree that these are historically accurate windows. And so we started with the state and went through the state historic preservation office, got them to approve the new windows. They're better windows. They're energy efficient windows and keep the dirt and dust out.
But they got to still
they
historically
still have
relevant.
to look the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done that.
We're about out of time here, so let's get the highlights. Yes.
Let me finish the 10 on the list. So the courthouse windows, St. Mary's parking lot was one that we added in.
Okay.
The parking lot near I Associates is nearly gone. East Pine Lodge pavement renovations is number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Okay.
Chaves County Administrative Center, the concrete out front where all the trees are, that concrete is heaved. It's been ground off. It's to the point where we're going to need to replace all that. The realignment of 285 and Hobson. And this one is a pretty important one that we've added to the list. It's number 9 on our list. However, it's very important to us to figure out ways to come up with a regional mental health facility, whether that means work with other counties and have it there, just a design, just an evaluation, something. But we need to continue to work towards solutions for our regional mental health issues. And some other counties are a little further ahead.
I can appreciate roads and things, but I'm like, let's bump that as high as possible.
We may need to join other counties who are doing it. And then the number 10 is an additional $5 million for the industrial site, the improvements to the airport. We're working really diligently with the city to try to improve that into a real economic force for our community. The city and the county both are working towards that. So
knock on the wood and see what
happens,
what shakes up and we get funded for and all that good stuff.
But thank you for having me on again. And
anytime, we love having you on, and we love talking county business. And of course, we'll be back to our normal the third Friday next month here.
Yes.
So good deal. Well, thank you, sir. As always, have a great weekend, and thanks for all the information. I dug all the White Mill stuff and all that.
Hopefully I'll get better information for next time when Phelps III and I get to talk. He loves to tell the history of the community and of the family.
I love hearing some of that stuff.
So it'll be really good.
I didn't grow up here, so hearing it's kind of neat for me. So.
Right.
Good deal. Well, thank you, sir. As always, appreciate it. We'll see you next time. It is 10 o'clock. That's going to do it for us.